The job was supposed to be simple: clean, lock up, go home. But hospitals don't stay empty after dark. When I first took the night janitor job at St. Augustine Memorial, I thought I'd scored the easiest gig imaginable. 4 nights a week, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. No patients, no doctors, no chaos. Just me, a mop, and enough silence to drown in. The hospital had been partially shut down years ago after a merger. Half the wing sealed, most of the staff gone. They only kept the place open because part of the West Wing was still used for medical record storage. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was steady. And I needed the money. The first few nights were uneventful. I'd clock in, grab my cart, and work my way down the long, tiled hallways. The smell of bleach and decay never quite left the air, even though the rooms hadn't seen a patient in years. I'd listen to the hum of the fluorescent lights, the distant ticking of pipes expanding with the night air. It was lonely, sure, but I didn't mind it, at least not at first. Things started to feel wrong around the 4th night. Nothing major, just little things you could almost excuse. The elevator doors would open on their own, even though I was the only one on the floor. Sometimes the lights would flicker in odd patterns, not like electrical glitches, but deliberate rhythms. 3 short blinks, pause, 2 long ones. I told myself it was nothing. Faulty wiring, old building. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone else was walking those halls with me. The security desk had an old intercom system that still worked, even though the cameras didn't. Every now and then, it would crackle with static followed by a faint melody. The same tune every time. A lullaby, slow, sad, like something you'd hear playing from a child's mobile. I tried asking my supervisor, an older guy named Tom, about it. He laughed. Yeah, the system's buggy as hell. It loops old PA messages sometimes, probably just picking up interference, but the thing was, the lullaby wasn't recorded. I checked the intercom logs. I wasn't supposed to, but boredom makes you curious. And there was no trace of any music ever being played. The line showed as inactive. The next night I brought my phone and recorded a short clip of the melody, thinking maybe I'd play it for Tom in the morning. But when I tried replaying it, all I got was silence. The file existed, but it was blank. That's when I started paying closer attention. The elevator was the first thing I noticed acting up again. I'd be cleaning on the 4th floor and the doors would ding open, empty, even though the control panel showed it parked on the ground level seconds earlier. I'd hear the gears moving when I wasn't near it, as if it was cycling through floors without any destination. Once I saw the number display flash B3. The problem? St. Augustine only had 2 basements, B1 and B2. When I told Tom about it, he got quiet. Then he said, "Don't worry about the lower levels. They're sealed off." I wanted to ask why, but his tone told me not to. Later that shift, while I was mopping near the main lobby, I noticed something strange on the security monitor. Even though the cameras were supposed to be disconnected, the screen flickered, and for a split second I saw movement in one of the dark hallways. A figure, blurry and colorless, walking past room 317. I went to check, of course. I don't know why. Curiosity, stupidity, take your pick. The door to 317 was open a crack even though I was sure I'd closed it earlier. I pushed it open and flicked on the light. The room was empty, except for a single gurney in the corner and something scratched into the far wall. Words, deep gouges in the paint, like someone had carved them with a scalpel. Don't clean the stairs. I didn't know what it meant. The stairs were off limits anyway. A collapse years ago or so, they said. But the next night when I passed that hallway again, the writing was gone. Vanished. Repainted even though no one else worked my shift. I told myself to stop looking for explanations. Just do my job, get paid, go home. But the hospital had other ideas. That night, around 2 a.m., the lights went out. Complete darkness except for the faint glow from my phone. I heard a soft mechanical whir, the elevator again. Its doors slid open somewhere down the hall, the sound echoing through the silence. I pointed my light toward it, expecting the usual. An empty shaft, a random malfunction. But instead the display above the doors flickered once and settled on a number I'd never seen before. B3. Then the doors opened wide, and I swear I saw a dim light glowing inside. A hallway. One that wasn't supposed to exist, and against every instinct, I took a step forward. They said the hospital shut down in 1996. The files I found were from last year. I stood at the elevator threshold for what felt like forever, staring at the glowing B3 on the panel. The doors waited, open and expectant, as if the building itself were holding its breath. I should have gone back upstairs, called Tom, reported an equipment malfunction. Anything except what I actually did. I stepped inside. The descent was slower than usual. The kind of slow that makes you feel like you're sinking instead of moving. The hum of the machinery was deeper here, vibrating through the walls. My flashlight flickered as I felt the air grow colder. When the doors finally opened, it wasn't onto a basement. It was onto a place that shouldn't exist. Dust coated everything. Wheelchairs sat abandoned mid-hallway, their wheels etched into the dirt like they'd been there for decades. Ceiling tiles hung loose. Pipes dripped condensation that looked black under the light. There were signs for Ward C and pediatric recovery, but none of these wings existed on the hospital's current floor plans. The smell hit me next. Something sour, old like mold mixed with antiseptic, I called out once, just to prove I wasn't scared. Hello? Maintenance here. My voice sounded wrong. Too small. Like it got swallowed before it could echo. I pushed my cart forward, its squeaky wheel the only sound besides the hum of the lights overhead. Every few steps I'd glance back at the elevator, the doors still open, waiting. A thin red emergency light pulsed above it, beating like a heart. Half the hallway was blocked off by heavy chains. Someone had welded the door shut and a faded sign read, "Restricted access and contamination risk," except the chains weren't rusty. They were new. I ran my hand along one of the padlocks and felt a thin layer of fresh grease. Someone had been down here recently. My flashlight caught something on the wall. A directory board, glass cracked, names printed neatly on laminated strips. Room numbers, occupants, notes. Except every patient name had been crossed out, all except one. Room 9C. Active observation. There was no room 9C on the blueprints. I'd checked them during orientation. I don't know why, but I started walking. Every door I passed was either chained, welded, or sealed with thick tape. The deeper I went, the more I noticed things that shouldn't be there. Fresh footprints in the dust. A rolling IV stand with dried fluid still in the bag. A child's toy on the floor, melted into the shape of the tiles. At the end of the corridor, a small metal cart sat overturned. On top of it were stacks of files, manila folders stamped with the hospital logo. My hand shook as I picked one up. Date of admission, April 12, 2022. Patient name, redacted. Status, non-compliant. Notes, refuses to cooperate. Report seeing custodial staff after hours. Claims to hear them cleaning. Recommend isolation. I flipped through a few more. Every file was recent. 2021, 2022, even one from this year. All labeled with the same thing. Custodial observation. And then I found it. One folder halfway down the pile, smudged with something dark, almost like oil. My name was on it. Full name spelled correctly. Employee. Name redacted. Assigned, night janitorial. Observed, B3 wing, 2:14 a.m. Behavior, non-compliant. Inside was a photograph. Me standing in the hallway, flashlight raised. The exact position I was in right now. I dropped the folder, my pulse pounding in my ears. Something clattered down the hall, soft at first, like rubber wheels rolling. I swung my light toward the sound. It was faint, but I could hear it clearly now. The squeak of a cleaning cart, the same pitch as mine. Except my cart was right beside me. Then came a voice, faint, distant, almost mechanical. Maintenance report. Logged. I spun around. The air behind me shimmered, and one of the old security monitors in the hallway flickered to life. Static crawled across the screen, then steadied into a grainy image. The feed showed someone and a janitor, pushing a mop down the corridor I was standing in. The angle was impossible, like it was being filmed from directly above. The figure's movements were stiff, repetitive, each motion perfectly mirrored to my own. I froze. Slowly, I lifted my mop just to see. On the monitor, he did too, and then, for a split second, the figure looked up at the camera. I couldn't see its face clearly, but I saw the shape of the mouth. It smiled. The screen went black. I backed away, my heel hitting the fallen cart. Something inside one of the nearby rooms shifted. A metallic scrape followed by the sound of something heavy dragging. I turned my light toward the noise and caught sight of another cart at the far end of the hall. Its wheels began to move, one slow turn at a time, until it toppled over with a loud clang. The air grew colder. I heard whispering now, too low to make out words, but layered, dozens of voices all murmuring in unison. It felt like they were circling me, closing in. My light flickered again, once, twice, and then steadied. The hall was empty. I grabbed the file with my name and stuffed it into my jacket. I didn't care what it meant. I just needed proof I wasn't losing it. As I turned back toward the elevator, I heard one final sound echo down the corridor. A crash. the distinct metallic clang of a mop bucket tipping over. I looked down at my own cart right beside me. The mop bucket sat perfectly still, full of dirty water, untouched. The noise came again, louder this time, followed by a wet sloshing sound from the direction of room 9C. I wasn't the only one working that night. Someone else was cleaning too, and they'd been doing it a long time. I stood frozen in the middle of the hallway, my heart hammering so loud I could almost hear it echo. The air down here had grown thick, damp, like breathing through cloth. I didn't want to move, but I couldn't just stand there either. The silence felt worse than the sound. So I pushed my cart forward, the wheel squeaking in rhythm with my pulse, and started walking back toward the elevator. Halfway there, I heard it again. A broom sweeping, slow, steady strokes against tile. I spun around, light cutting through the dim corridor. The sound stopped instantly. The beam landed on a wall of chained doors and peeling paint. Nobody there. I tried to tell myself it was just the pipes again, or maybe the wind pushing debris, until the sweeping started again. This time closer. Shh, shh, shh. Pause. Shh, shh, shh. It wasn't random. It was methodical, routine, someone working. Hello? My voice cracked. Tom, is that you? No answer. Then came another sound. A low, dry cough from somewhere nearby. The kind of cough you hear in a hospital room right before someone presses the nurse call button. I knew that sound. I'd worked plenty of hospitals before, but this one came from behind the welded doors. I took a step closer and felt a vibration through the floor. Faint, rhythmic. Footsteps, dozens of them. But they weren't walking toward me or away. They were pacing, like a shift change happening all around me in the dark. The air temperature dropped again. My breath started to show. I wasn't imagining it anymore. The intercom system crackled suddenly, loud enough to make me flinch. Static filled the hall, and then a voice, old, warped, metallic. All staff report to the basement. The words repeated, distorted each time. All staff and report to the basement. Then softer, like a whisper right next to my ear. You're late. I stumbled back against the wall, trying to steady my breathing. The intercom shouldn't have even worked. The power had gone out 10 minutes ago. But there it was, alive and waiting, humming faintly like it was thinking. And then, through the static, came another sound. Water. The faint slosh of a mop bucket rolling over tile. I turned slowly, my flashlight trembling in my grip. Down the far corridor, near the corner where the light barely reached, I saw movement. A figure, blue uniform, pushing a mop for a heartbeat. Relief hit me. On another worker, maybe. Someone else trapped down here too? I called out again. Hey, over here! The figure didn't react. It just kept moving, slow, mechanical, back and forth, dragging the mop in the same path over and over again. I walked closer. My shoes crunched on broken glass, echoing too loud in the silence. Hey, you shouldn't be down here. The figure stopped, stood perfectly still, and then, without turning, it tilted its head, not sideways, but backward, bending in a way no human neck should. My flashlight beam landed on its face. It was wearing my uniform. my name patch, but the skin looked gray, waterlogged, like something that had been pulled from a drain. I ran. I didn't even think. I just turned and sprinted back toward the elevator, the squeak of my cartwheels chasing me until I realized I'd left the cart behind. The sounds around me grew louder, more sweeping, mopping, coughing, clattering, an entire night shift working in invisible unison. The scent of disinfectant filled the air, sharp enough to burn my throat. Somewhere behind me, I heard the elevator doors open with a soft ding. I didn't look back. I just dove inside and started jabbing the button for any floor but this one. The doors began to close and stopped. Something blocked the sensor. I turned, ready to scream, but nothing was there. Just a faint wet footprint on the tile, one then another, leading right up to me, and then silence. The lights flickered and the elevator speaker came to life. A voice quieter now, distorted beyond recognition, clean, until it's gone. I grabbed the emergency phone, but it was dead. My hands were shaking so badly that I dropped it. That's when I noticed something hanging from the panel beside the buttons. A hospital badge, dangling on a frayed blue lanyard. It was smeared with something brown-red. Like dried blood, the name on it was mine, not just the name, and the photo too. Except the eyes were wrong. They were staring directly into the camera, wide and glassy, like they'd seen something they couldn't forget. I don't know how long I stood there staring at that badge. Long enough that I started hearing it again, faintly from somewhere outside the elevator. The squeak of wheels, the rhythmic mop strokes echoing down the hall. I have the audio if you want to hear it. I don't know how it recorded, since my phone battery was at 1% and the mic wasn't even on. But it's there. You can hear the sweeping, the footsteps, and something else underneath. A voice humming that same lullaby from the intercom. Just before the file cuts off, a bell chimes, the hospital's alarm system, even though the power was off. And then, in the dark, every emergency sign blinked awake one by one, pulsing red through the hallways. Maintenance required. Sub-level 3. It looked like the janitors had cleaned this place forever, but no one had ever left. I didn't want to go down. Every cell in my body screamed to get out, to leave this place behind and never come back. But when the elevator doors closed, they didn't stop at the ground floor, they just kept going. The display above the buttons glitched, numbers flickering like a dying clock. 1, 0, B1, B2, then a pause, a groan of metal deep in the shaft, and then a new floor lit up, one that wasn't on the panel before, B13. I stared at it. The button wasn't just lit, it was pulsing like something alive beneath the plastic. I didn't press it. But the elevator moved anyway. The lights dimmed, humming softly, the cables creaking overhead. The air grew warmer, thicker. It felt like the elevator was descending for miles. My ears popped. The smell of rust and mildew thickened until I could almost taste it. Then came a sound from outside the car. A soft, rhythmic scrubbing. I leaned closer to the small glass window in the door. At first, all I saw was my reflection, pale, sweating, eyes wide. Then something smeared across the glass from the outside. A handprint, wet, human-sized, dragging slowly downward. I jumped back, heart hammering so hard my chest ached. The lights above me flickered, and once, twice, and then a faint humming tune began seeping through the ceiling. Speaker, that same melody from the intercom. The same one I'd heard the ghostly janitor humming upstairs. When the elevator finally stopped, it did so with a metallic lurch that nearly threw me to my knees. The doors creaked open to reveal a hallway so dark my flashlight beam seemed to dissolve in the air. Sublevel, except the wall beside the door didn't say 3. It said maintenance, long-term storage. The concrete was damp and slick, streaked with brown water stains. My footsteps echoed hollowly like I was walking through a tunnel carved out of a lung. Then I saw the walls, covered in writing. Not graffiti, schedules, cleaning rotations, supply logs, but the words were scratched in with something sharp. Maybe nails or broken glass, dates, names, tasks repeated endlessly. Wax floor, scrub drains, dispose of waste. Repeat, over and over. Some of the names were ones I recognized from the old employee logbook I'd seen upstairs. Others were newer. One of them was mine. The smell of bleach hung heavy, layered over something sour and organic. Ahead, the hallway opened into a massive underground ward. Rows of hospital beds lined the space, each one occupied by something under a sheet. At first, I told myself they were mannequins, training dummies maybe. But as I stepped closer, I saw the outlines beneath the fabric, the weight of the shapes, the subtle collapse of bodies that had been lying too long, and the smell. God, the smell. I gagged and pulled my shirt over my nose. Some of the sheets were old and yellowed. Others looked fresh, too fresh. A low humming filled the space. A generator somewhere nearby. It wasn't steady. It pulsed in time with the flickering of the overhead lights. The wires snaked along the ceiling like veins, feeding life into something that should have stayed dead. I followed the hum deeper, past the rows of beds. The deeper I went, the more the floor changed. First cracked tile, then bare cement, then a sticky, uneven surface that squelched under my boots. The humming grew louder. I rounded the corner into a small control room filled with ancient machinery, switches, gauges, and a massive generator that looked half melted. It was covered in grime and handprints. Hundreds of them, like people had been clawing at it trying to shut it off. Beside the generator sat a desk. On it, a clipboard. I picked it up with shaking hands and flipped through the sheets. Each page listed cleaning crew assignments. Every entry was dated months, years after the hospital closed, and every one of them had a check mark under active. I turned to the last, for the most recent entry was dated today, assigned to my name. Status in progress. I dropped the clipboard, something behind me shuffled, slow, dragging. I turned, flashlight trembling. One of the sheeted figures had fallen over, or maybe it had gotten up. I stepped backward, my breath coming fast. Hello? I whispered, my voice cracking. "Who's there?" The generator sparked suddenly, throwing a burst of light across the room. In that flash I saw movement, the sheet slipping off one of the bodies, revealing a waxy face beneath. Its mouth was open, eyes wide, skin gray and tight against bone, and on its chest, sewn into the fabric of its old janitor's uniform, was a patch. Maintenance crew, sub-level 3. It started humming. That same lullaby. The generator flickered again. Sparks rained down like fireflies. I stumbled backward, hit the wall, and dropped my flashlight. The beam rolled across the floor, spinning dizzy circles of light. For half a second I thought I saw them all move. Every sheet rustled. Every figure sat up just a little higher. The air filled with that low, wet shuffling sound, like 100 mops dragging across tile. Then, total darkness. The generator gave one final shriek of metal, then died. For a moment the world was silent. Then, faintly, the lights buzzed back to life, and one of the figures was standing right in front of me. He said he'd been here since the hospital closed. But when I looked closer, his badge had tomorrow's date. The man standing in front of me wasn't just another janitor. He was me, same uniform, same faded patch, same ID clipped crooked to the chest. The only difference was his eyes, hollow, ringed with black, reflecting the flicker of the failing lights. He gripped a mop identical to mine, its handle splintered and wet. The smell of ammonia and something rotting rolled off him in waves. When he spoke, his voice wasn't really sound. It was like a recording, replaying through cheap speakers, muffled, slightly off sync. "You're early." I froze. My flashlight, still trembling in my hand, shook light across his face, or what was left of it. His skin looked stretched too thin, like it was struggling to stay human. Beneath it, something pulsed faintly, as if trying to crawl out. I'm just cleaning," I stammered. "I shouldn't even be here. I don't know what this floor is." He tilted his head as if the words had to travel through decades before reaching him. "Everyone says that. Their first night. My first—" I started. He stepped closer. His boots made no sound against the slick floor. The air buzzed around him. The same low hum I'd heard in the walls, the one I'd mistaken for a generator. "Sub-level 3, he said softly, his tone almost rehearsed. "Where the messes don't end." Behind him, something dripped from the ceiling. A steady, sticky rhythm. My eyes followed the trail to the floor. Streaks of water, cleaner, maybe blood, forming words across the tile. "Do not stop cleaning." My reflection in the puddle below looked normal. At first. Then it lagged. Half a second behind, I blinked. My reflection didn't. The other me crouched beside one of the sheeted bodies. "Someone has to clean up after the living," he whispered, dragging the mop across the floor in long, trembling arcs. "That's the rule." "The rule?" I whispered. He nodded, slow and mechanical. "When the hospital shut down, they didn't shut us down. Someone has to keep things running. The lights, the floors, the patients." "Patients." He turned to me with a faint smile that didn't reach his eyes. "The ones who never left." He motioned toward the beds, all those silent, sheeted figures, They make a mess. The living always do. My hands shook. I don't understand. You're saying you've been here since the hospital closed? That's impossible. That was 1996, he finished for me. His smile widened, cracked, as though he'd been waiting for that question for a very long time. Time doesn't clean well down here, I stepped back. I'm leaving, he laughed, a sound that started human and ended in static. Tried that once. He pointed down the hall. Door's still there, but it doesn't lead out, just circles back. He gestured at the ceiling. This floor erases quitters. It doesn't like a dirty record. My pulse hammered. I turned toward the elevator, the walls anywhere that wasn't him, but something had changed. The hallways had shifted. The walls looked newer, freshly scrubbed. There were no doors, only endless white tile, and in the distance the faint sound of a mop sliding back and forth. The other janitor straightened, his head cocked. Hear that? He asked. That's the day shift. They don't know we exist, he turned back to me. But they will. I shook my head. You're not real. This place isn't real. He stepped forward, close enough that I could smell the bleach on his breath. That's what I said too. The night the floor opened for me, he lifted his ID badge and pressed it against my chest. The plastic was cold, the clip biting my shirt. I glanced down and then saw my name. Not the same as his, mine. Printed clean as if newly issued. Below it, the title, Custodial, Sub-Level 3 Active. My voice came out small. How did you? He cut me off. Someone has to take over. Then he handed me the mop. I didn't want to touch it, but my hands moved anyway, as if pulled by something stronger than me. The handle was slick, warm. It's your turn now, he said softly. The words echoed, glitching, repeating inside my skull. Your turn now. Your turn now. I looked up at him, but he was already fading, his outline dissolving like smoke in wind. The hallway brightened behind him, revealing hundreds of other mops lined against the wall. Each one had a tag. Each tag had a name. Mine was already there. The lights above flickered violently, the humming growing to a roar. I dropped the mop and stumbled backward, but my feet felt heavy, glued to the tile. My reflection in the floor stared back up at me, except it wasn't moving anymore. It was just watching. Then it smiled. The last thing I saw before the lights went out completely was that reflection lifting its mop, the same way I had, the same way he had. And then from somewhere in the darkness, his voice whispered one last time, soft, tired, almost kind. Welcome to the night shift. The light snapped off and the sound of mopping began again. I woke up in the janitor's closet. Same bleach smell. Same hum of the fluorescent light. Same cracked tile ceiling I'd been staring at since my first shift. For a second, I almost believed it had all been a dream. The ghost floors, the copy of myself, the darkness below. But dreams don't replace your reflection. When I sat up, something felt off. The mop bucket was newer. The shelves were restocked with supplies I didn't recognize. Unfamiliar brands, different colors. Labels written in handwriting instead of print. A poster on the wall that used to say, "Safety first." Now read, "Keep the hospital alive." And on the door, The little brass nameplate where my name had been neatly engraved? Scratched out, like someone had taken a key to it until it was nothing but jagged lines. My head throbbed. My throat was dry. The clock above the door blinked 12-1 over and over again. No hands, just that stuttering digital pulse. I reached for my phone. Dead. No signal, no battery, no memory of even turning it off. When I tried the door, it didn't budge. I pushed harder, then slammed my shoulder into it. Nothing. The knob twisted loosely, like it was turning on both sides at once. A low tone buzzed through the intercom. Then a voice, cold, automated, and wrong, said, "All shifts complete. New worker assigned." That made me stop breathing for a second. The closet's little desk still had the logbook on it, the same one I'd been signing every night. But when I opened it, the last entry wasn't mine. The handwriting looked like mine, but older, uneven, shaking. The entry read, "Shift change authorized. Cleaner ID redacted. Status retained." There was a sticky note beside it, pale yellow and curling at the edges. 3 words written in marker, "Clean until it's gone." I didn't know what that meant until I heard it. Mops squeaking, buckets rolling. The sound came from the hallway. My entire body tensed. I leaned close to the door, pressed my ear against the cool metal, and listened. Several someones were working out there. The rhythmic sound of mopping, the wet slap of rags, the creak of wheels. Except every few seconds the rhythm glitched, overlapping, slightly out of sync. I crouched to look through the crack under the door. A light flickered in the hallway. Shadows moved past. Boots, wheels, mop handles. But they weren't attached to anything, just motions without people. When I finally forced the door open, the hallway stretched ahead, familiar yet rearranged. The paint was brighter, the floors spotless, the walls lined with motivational signs I'd never seen before. Keep it clean. Keep it working. Keep it forever. I followed the hall toward the security station, my last hope of understanding what was happening. The CCTV monitors were still on. Dozens of screens, each showing a different floor of the hospital. Only this time, I was on every one of them, mopping in the ICU, sweeping in pediatrics, polishing the glass in the morgue, even emptying trash in the cafeteria, all at once. Each version of me moved in perfect sync for a few seconds. Then one lagged, then another sped up, like separate recordings trying to align. My stomach turned. I pressed my hand to the glass of the monitor, and one of the me's on screen looked up, not at the camera, at me. Then, slowly, one by one, each version stopped what they were doing and turned toward the lens. Every face on my face, grinning too wide. The intercom crackled again. "All shifts complete," it said. Then softer, like it was whispering directly into my ear. "New worker assigned." The time clock on the wall clicked by itself. Punch, punch, punch. Each sound echoed down the hall. I ran for the exit. The main doors loomed ahead just beyond the lobby. Sunlight, or something like it, glowed faintly through the glass. I shoved the bar. Nothing. I hit it again. It rattled but stayed shut. Through the window, the parking lot looked too clean. No cracks, no weeds. The cars were lined up perfectly identical. Same color, same make. And every single one had a hospital badge hanging from the mirror. Mine was the only one missing. Something inside me broke then. I stumbled back, gasping, sweat slicking my palms. The intercom clicked again. Not static this time, but my own voice. "End of shift," it said cheerfully. "Remember, keep everything spotless." Then quieter, like a secret meant only for me. "Don't forget your mop." I turned toward the janitor's closet. It was open, and inside, propped neatly against the wall, was a clean mop, still dripping. Its tag read, "Shift 2, active." And beneath that, carved into the handle just deep enough to bleed wood, my name. Incident report, St. Augustine Memorial Hospital. Date come redacted, filed by. Night maintenance staff incident. Type, personnel missing. Routine shift summary. At approximately 2:14 a.m. on date, an employee identified as name redacted failed to clock out following the completion of janitorial duties. Security footage shows the individual entering sub-level 3, though this floor has been decommissioned since 1996. Attempts to locate the employee were unsuccessful. No traces of forced entry, struggle, or unauthorized access were observed. Building maintenance logs confirm that sub-level 3's power supply was offline during the reported timeframe. However, intermittent lighting was detected via internal sensors. Witness statements, security reports note audible activity, mopping sounds, elevator movement, and the playing of Silent Night over the hospital intercom, despite all systems being officially inactive. 2 guards resigned the following day, citing repeating voices and echoing footsteps during their search. Additional notes: this is not the first occurrence of staff loss during after-hours maintenance. Records show similar disappearances filed under varying names between 2002 and 2023. Each file concludes with the same remark: shift complete. Replacement assigned. Recommendations: sub-level 3 remains sealed pending review. Future maintenance should be conducted during daylight hours only. Digital addendum, auto-logged 04:17 a.m. A new entry has been automatically generated by the hospital's internal system. Employee log update, status active. Name, full name matches the narrator. Assignment sub-level 3, completion time. Pending closing statement, attached text file. If you find this file, don't come looking. The hospital doesn't need more staff. I tried to leave. I really did. But it's like the floors don't stop once you start cleaning them. They just shift one layer beneath another. And sooner or later you end up where I am. They'll tell you this place shut down, that no one works nights anymore. But you'll hear the intercom eventually. You'll hear the song, and when you do, don't take the elevator. If you ever take a night job at St. Augustine Memorial, check if sub-level 3 is still locked, because if it's open, I'm still down there.